Welcome to the IDP Advice Show for week 17. Today we're going to talk about major and key IDP injuries from week 16, some defensive playing time situations, a little bit on positioning as well. And that's where we're going to go today. I am your host, Ricky Rodrigue. You can find me on X at RickyRod66. I'm joined by Shawn Teague as always. Shawn, you can find at Shawn8386 on X. Thrilled to be with you here on Tuesday, December 23rd as we record this, recapping week 16, sharing some thoughts for week 17, which is championship week for most leagues. There's a few crazy people that do week 18, but most everybody does week 17. Before we get started, on behalf of Shawn and myself, I want to wish people that are celebrating Christmas a very Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays to everyone. Hopefully it's safe and you're getting to enjoy time with family and friends. All righty, as always, you can put your questions on YouTube on this same show, and Shawn and I will be checking it out, as well as comments and suggestions as well. And appreciate a thumbs up as always and subscribing to the channel. All right, a little bit different this week. Instead of going team by team, we're going to do injuries by position and implications. And then we are going to do playing time looks, once again, not by team, but key things that you might be wondering about. We'll be doing that by position. Part of the reason we're doing that is to shorten the show because we know with the holidays, a lot of people don't have as much time, and we want to get you back to your families, but still give you the information you need in a more condensed manner. Give us your feedback on the channel, by the way, in terms of how this went. As a reminder, there are 3 games on Thursday, 2 games on Saturday, and then the rest on Sunday, except for one Monday night. So remember, you got to get your lineups in early, and you're going to have to make some key decisions about who you might start on Thursday versus waiting for Saturday or waiting for Sunday, and injuries come into play on that, and that's part of the reason we're going to start with injuries on this. All right, Shawn, let's start with the defensive line, and for timestamp purposes. And we're going to start with the Steelers, and T.J. Watt and Nick Herbig. Both were out in this last game. Herbig on Friday was questionable, and then he got turned to out on Saturday, which isn't a good sign. Watt, today Mike Tomlin said that he has no update, which implied there's no indication that Watt will play this week. If Watt and Herbig are out, Jack Sawyer, who stepped in and played 89% of the snaps and had 5 combined tackles, and I believe a quarterback hit as well. Shawn, would you be willing to take a chance on Jack Sawyer?
Yeah, if there's nobody else out there right now, and I just needed
That's
somebody.
A ringing endorsement.
Yeah,
there's nobody else out there.
At this time of year, it gets weird, so you always end up playing guys you've never even heard of. But yeah, he's good to go.
I don't expect him to get sacks.
Tackles, yeah.
I think it's tackles.
Yep.
And I think that's what you're hoping for him. And hopefully he can do well enough that they don't double team Alex Highsmith on the other side and keep him from being successful. All right, Jalen Carter, who's missed the past couple of weeks after having surgery apparently on both shoulders, is returning this week. And this isn't a question or whatever. It's been stated that he will be returning. Now, that means less playing time for Jordan Davis, who had bumped up into the low 60s. And when he's been in that range, Jordan Davis has been successful in terms, particularly for tackles and pass defenses and all. But when Carter's been there, he's been trending downwards. Another name that has popped up that's been doing well in Carter's absence has been Byron Young. But this is going to be a significant hit to Byron Young. Shawn, related to Jalen Carter, he's been out. He's coming back from surgery. Would you put him into your lineup this week?
No. Nope. Not with everything on the line. I'm not. I'm probably going with whoever the replacement is, unless it was one of these guys. But yeah, I'm looking elsewhere, actually. He's not a big statistic guy anyway.
Exactly. His NFL value doesn't match, is more or greater than, I should say, his IDP value. So I'm right there with you. Quinnen Williams is expected to return. He was limited in practice today on Tuesday here. So he's supposed to be there for the Thursday game with the Commanders. Shawn, you playing Quinnen Williams?
I am playing Quentin Williams. I believe he's got some incentives he's chasing, um, and he's usually pretty good for a little rusty here lately as far as getting stats, but yeah, Quentin Williams, one of the better ones out there. I'm playing him.
And he is playing that commander, so also just put starting offensive guard Sam Cosmi on IR today as well. So that'll certainly help. And he could be chasing Josh Johnson as opposed to Marcus Mariota on top of that. So there could be some interesting opportunity. Either if Johnson's in there, they're going to try and run the ball a lot, which could be good for Williams. And if he does pass it, there's some opportunities for sacks. So I'm playing him as well. Josh Sweat left the game for the Cardinals fairly early on. Baron Browning and Jordan Birch were his replacements. We're probably not going to play either one of those guys. Walter Nolan was having another solid game, and then once again couldn't avoid the injury bug. That's unfortunate. And during the off-season shows, we'll be talking about Walter Nolan and several others in terms of our outlook for him for dynasty and for redraft for next year and so forth. But Walter Nolan, in fact, got put on IR today. And Darius Robinson, who led the team in defensive tackles, had a solid game. I believe it was 7 tackles in total. But Shawn, I don't think we're trusting Darius Robinson right now.
I am not. I am not. Too big of a rotation on this front line, and it's been that way for years. I don't trust any of these guys. Actually, Nolan was cool. It was fun. He was fresh, but without him staying healthy, everybody else is getting like 40%, 50%, 30%. It's just there's like 8 guys rotating this line.
Right. Milton Williams was designated on Tuesday to come back from IR. That means the 21-day window is open. It does not mean he will be open. It will be open for him this weekend. But if it is open, Shawn, is Milton Williams going into your lineup in a 2 defensive tackle required league?
2 defense, I'd probably take that shot. He did have some pretty solid games earlier in the season with some sacks. Again, he's another guy that's better NFL wise than he is for fantasy, just based on his run defense. But yeah, if you're starting to, I would probably do it. I don't expect him to play this week.
Okay. Deron Payne for the Commanders was a DNP on both Monday and Tuesday. I did not practice, for those that aren't familiar with that terminology. Jazan Johnny Newton has a head/concussion issue, which I believe happened on the second to last play when the Eagles, instead of just taking knees, was running the ball, and he got hurt on that. Unfortunately, expect both of those guys to be out. The only reason I'm calling out, we usually don't talk about offense, but while Javon Kinlaw will still be there, Eddie Goldman also got put on IR. Cowboys may be able to run the ball a little bit better than they have been lately, which could hurt Dak's stats a little bit. So just something to keep in mind if those guys are out. Brian Brzee was out, or left the game, with a knee injury. Good news, it's not a serious knee injury is being reported, but not expected to play this week. Nathan Shepard picked up the slack and had his highest percent of snaps played this week at 65%. Had a sack and all. In fact, the Saints sacked the Jets 8 times. Okay, the Saints got 8 sacks. Let that sink in for a second. For those that know I'm a Saints fan, I just had to get that in there. But back to
Saints fan.
Back to Milton Williams. The Patriots play the Jets this coming week. And so just food for thought in terms of if you want to play Milton Williams. Okay? But I don't think we're going to play Nathan Shepard, even though the Saints have a pretty good matchup against the Titans, even though Shepard had a great game against the Jets. Lastly, on the defensive line, while it's not quite an injury, but somebody is going to be out, Derek Hall was suspended for stepping on the ankle of the starting guard for the Rams and knocking him out the game, which it was really a terrible cheap shot. To me, it should have been more than one game. What does that mean? DeMarcus Lawrence, Uchenna Nwosu, Boye Mafe will probably get more snaps. Out of those 3, with the expected increase in snap count, I don't think it changes. You played DeMarcus Lawrence, and we're not playing Nwosu Mafe, correct, Shawn?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Lawrence has actually had a pretty decent season, all things considered, and these other guys have been knocked down to rotational pieces.
Okay. All right, let's move to the linebackers and injuries now. Cedric Gray. But before we get into Cedric Gray, let's get on a tangent in Cody Barton. Shawn, what do you think about Cody Barton?
He is fantastic at being one of the worst players in the league.
He had a whopping 2 combined tackles
I'm
this week.
shocked.
One solo, one assisted. I know that's shocking. But
It's
James
terrible.
Williams, who played in place of Cedric Gray, because Cedric Gray was out with a concussion, led the team in tackles with 8 tackles and actually got a sack. I picked him up in one league, but I didn't have the cojones to put him in. Luckily, I still won in that league and advanced. Shawn, if Gray's out, we're playing James Williams, aren't we?
Absolutely, especially if you have that DB eligibility like you do on a few of these leagues. I do believe he's a bit banged up as well, though, so definitely keep an eye on that. I think I've seen him pick up. I don't think it was anything serious, but I did think saw him with some little injury.
Yeah, but he did play 100% of the snaps, so which was good news. So
Yeah,
hopefully,
it
yeah,
was something after game there or towards the end of it. So yeah, just keep an eye on it.
for those
Best case
that run,
scenario, they should bench Barton and play Gray and Williams. That's what I want to see. That's what I want to see.
I
We're
would
not going to see it.
I would love to see it as well, but I'm with your last comment there. I don't think that's going to happen this
No.
week. So for those that have been relying on Gray all year, I know you're hoping to get him back. For those like me that didn't have a single share of Cedric Gray, that was one of my misses. I gotta admit, but I'm banking on James Williams and to hopefully play him in the playoffs. But we'll have to watch the practice reports this week for sure. All right, N'Kobe Dean, who's been playing fantastic after he came back from that knee injury from last year, hurts his hamstring, leaves the game. Jahad Campbell came in his place, and if I remember correctly, and unfortunately, I keep on saying if I remember correctly because I didn't have time to jot into the stats into our notes all the different tackles and so forth because my granddaughter is here and I've been spending time with her. So apologies for that. But most of these are pretty close, and my memory bank's not too bad. But back to Jahad Campbell. If Dean's out, which most people expect with that hamstring and getting him ready for the playoffs, he won't play. Jahad Campbell, don't have him as high we would have had N'Kobe Dean, but do you have him as a number 3 linebacker and number 4 linebacker? Where do you have Jahad Campbell?
Yeah, you could see him as probably a mid to low three. I think he's got a solid enough tackle floor, and I believe his matchup's pretty decent this week. Buffalo, is that right?
The Eagles, I have the schedule on the side here. That is right. They play Buffalo in the late window on Sunday. That is correct.
Yeah, Buffalo's been giving up a decent amount of tackles to linebackers with their rushing attack and everything. So, plus he, could be used like he was earlier the year and maybe go after the quarterback. He doesn't have a sack, but they send him after. If he's
Well,
used in the same way, Dean was getting a sack about every game, it felt like, or a half sack. So if they could use Campbell in that same way instead of putting him on the edge and blitz him up the middle, he's a good pickup this week.
okay. You heard it from Shawn there, folks. DeMarvion Overshown, who we got so excited for as his snap count got in the 90% range, unfortunately suffered a concussion after only 9% of the snaps. Shamar James went in for him, played 78% of the snaps. So 78 and 9, you can do the math. That puts you at 87. So that's roughly what Overshown had played the week before. Overshown had a DNP on Tuesday. Shawn, Shamar James, are you confident putting him in your lineup if DeMarvion Overshown is out? Question number 1. Question number 2 is he a linebacker 4, Shamar James, or a linebacker 3? And if you put Campbell and James, which one, if you had those two, which one would you play first? So a lot of questions. That was like 3 questions.
Yeah, you hit me with a lot. Every time I had an answer, you changed the question on me. I do think Shamar James takes over a full-time role. That was evident this past week where it was still Logan Wilson and Kenneth Murray rotating one position, and Shamar James just took over the other. So I would expect that to continue. Where at worst, it's a 3-man rotation. But I expect him to keep that, and I think he's a pretty good tackle machine himself. Doesn't offer a whole lot more outside of that, and I would pick him up if I need a linebacker. He's available. I might have him right there with Campbell, maybe a little higher, just because I feel like his floor is higher than Campbell's, just based on what we've seen in the other games. His consistency was better than Campbell's. So yeah, still a 3, but just above.
The only thing I'm worried about James, and it's because of the opposition, and we've seen it like when the Raiders offense has sucked so badly, for example, and they're only on the field for 40-some snaps, is if Josh Johnson ends up being the quarterback for Washington, of course it is the Dallas defense. So even with Josh Johnson, they should be okay to give James enough opportunities. But between Campbell and James, I might lean a little bit towards Campbell just because I have that fear about the Commanders' offense being able to stay on the field.
That's totally fair.
Okay. All right, Robert Spillane and the Patriots. Robert Spillane was out again. At least they told us he was going to be out. Apparently still in a walking boot. Doesn't sound very good for him to be active this coming week against the Jets, who I mentioned earlier. They play on the Sunday game. Jack Gibbons, 100% of the snaps. Christian Ellis, who for a period of time, my son had him in league, said, hey, is Christian Ellis hurt or even playing? Because he didn't get to watch because he was working. So he texted me that and I said, I've seen him out there, and he finally put up, I believe, 5 tackles in total. But so let's talk about Gibbons first. Jack Gibbons against that Jets, linebacker 2.
Yeah, solid 2. He's not getting up anywhere near the 1s, I don't think. But his last 2 games, where he's gotten 100% of the snaps, we're looking at 19 tackles over the last 2 games. So that's pretty good. So we're looking at 9 to 10 tackles. Fumble recovery this last week, I think. I think a sack before the other one. So
all right, we're in on Jack Gibbons.
We're in on Jack Gibbons. Yeah, like I said, looks like Spillane is out.
Yep.
So
yeah, at this point in time, I see the Patriots trying to do whatever they can not to rush Spillane back and get him healthy for the playoffs. Now that they've clinched for sure. Azeez Al-Shaair missed the game. EJ Speed joined Henry To'oTo'o, both of them playing 100% of the snaps. If Al-Shaair is out, where do you have EJ Speed? Do you have him as the linebacker 3 or 4? And where does he rate versus, say, a Jahad Campbell and Shamar James?
I'm a known anti-EJ Speed type of guy. He just doesn't do it for me. I feel like he's more of just a guy than some of these others. Probably high end 4, low end 3 at best. Tackles, that's all we're going to get. I think I'd rather have everybody else over him that we've mentioned so far.
Okay. And as of now, it appears that Al-Shaair has a chance of playing on in their next game, which is actually on the Saturday, the 27th. I had to double check here against the Chargers. I had to remind myself of that. So there's a good chance he will be active. So if you relied on speed, you're going to probably most likely need to take him out of your lineup. But as you can tell, neither one of us feel great about EJ Speed here in your fantasy football championship. Demario Davis left the game late for the Saints with an injury. Suppose it was a hamstring. He only played 89% of the snaps, and he usually plays 98 to 100% of the snaps. Danny Stutzman is the person who appeared to pick up the additional snaps. In your fantasy football championship, if Demario Davis is out, Shawn, is it the position that makes it productive, and are you taking a chance on Danny Stutzman?
I've used worse in my championship weeks.
I don't know if I can go there, man. He hasn't started a single game all year.
Right.
He's alternated with Werner, and when he has gotten in there, he played a lot more of the first and second down snaps, and not many on the passing situations as well.
Would you use him over Pete Warner?
Ooh, I don't think I'd use either one of those two.
Oh, I
And there's
I
always
agree. It just depending on your league size, your depth, and what is actually available, you could do worse. But you're looking truly desperate here in a very deep league to have to
and
get these guys.
the other risk, and once again, Werner played below 60% of the snaps as a side note. But the other, I shouldn't say risk, but the other thing about Stutzman is Werner, because of his experience, maybe they move him to the Davis slot and have Stutzman play that Werner role, which has only been getting like what it is. It's been now 8 or 9 weeks in a row where it's been a max of 62 or 63% of the snaps that Werner had played at that number 2 linebacker role for the Saints. So that's the other risk as well. So unless you hear something called out, and
Yeah,
if Werner, okay, let's play this. If Werner, and it's talked about that Davis ends up being out, and they say they're going to put Werner into Davis's spot, where would you have Werner? Linebacker 3, linebacker 4.
I don't want Warner at all. He's
Even if
still
he's playing that Davis role, and you'd
I
most likely play at least 90% of the snaps.
low end 3, high 4. I think it's the ceiling. Tennessee's
You'll have Campbell and James and those guys we talked about earlier over him.
there's a lot of yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. But it just depends on what Titans team we see too. Here lately, they've been running the ball pretty well, so it's more tackle opportunities. Yeah, I really don't want to my season coming down to Pete Warner. I would trust James over Warner right now. Shamar James
Okay.
by quite a bit.
All right, let's move to the Broncos then. Dre Greenlaw, very late in the game. At least he had played 71% of the snaps, which has been one of his higher snap counts for the year. But he gets hurt. Jordan Turner took a couple of snaps, but Justin Sternad had a full practice today. Once again, they have a Thursday game, the Broncos do against the Chiefs. The Chiefs had a hard time. So the Chiefs' offense went from one extreme where their offense is on the field so much that their defense wasn't getting a lot of snaps to have IDP stats. This game could be the exact opposite with Chris Aludicon, I believe is the pronunciation. Don't quote me on that, but he's going to be their starting quarterback in this game. Let's just talk about the Broncos in general. Any concern about them being able to rack up the IDP stats in that kind of situation? I know Luakon did okay,
Yeah,
surprisingly, when he came in for Gardner Minshew, but teams will have at least they'll have a few days to prepare based on what they saw. How you feeling
I
about folks like Singleton and Sternard and et cetera?
I'm probably firing up the defensive line, the Benito, Cooper, Zach Allen, Franklin Myers. If I'm that deep, I'm probably using those guys because I feel like they got a lot to prove right now with the way they kind of got handled by Jacksonville, and a very banged up Chiefs offense is prime for a bunch of sacks. I think so. I'm not expecting much, like say, out of the linebackers. Safeties, I'd be concerned about playing them as well.
Yeah. The Tennessee Titans, for perspective, got four sacks on the Chiefs. That I mean, when you're
Yeah,
talking about outside of Jeff Simmons, the type of people, and we're going to talk about Truman Jones a little bit later in the show, but when you think about that, boy, it's the Chiefs' offense is bad. I'll just leave it at that, and so they might not be playing the snaps. That could be risky for the Singletons and the Sternids, and particularly the Hufangas as well, etc. All righty, let's move on. Of course, the Ravens, we talked about it previously how Teddy Buchanan injured his knee, went to IR. Trenton Simpson did replace him, only played 71% of the snaps, did have a fairly good tackle game and ended up picking up a sack as well. Once again, I like doing these comparisons to give people food for thought, depending on their league and if they're desperate and so forth because of some of these injuries. Where would you rate a Simpson versus a Campbell or a Shamar James?
yeah. I think Campbell has a pretty defined role. I was actually high on him going into this season. It's just when he lost the playing time to Buchanan, so I'm actually pretty comfortable with Simpson having his defined, 70, 80% roll tackles. He doesn't have the responsibilities some of these guys do. Um, I'm fine with probably starting Simpson over most of these guys. Probably all of them
Interesting.
so far.
Even though he might be in the 70% range and a
Mhm.
Shamar James might be in the 90% range, Jihad Campbell probably in the 90%, you'd still play Simpson over those guys.
Yes, when Simpson's got his full start this year in the games where he was definitely, playing his full part time role, his floor seemed higher than Campbell's has been. Uh, Even James is a little more of a tackle machine. Uh, so I think he comes the closest to Simpson here. But again, that's a matchup thing. Yeah, I'm comfortable with Simpson over these guys.
All right. So then Trevin Wallace was out for the Panthers again this week after being out, coming back, and then now being out again. Christian Rosemoon took on the green dot and had a much better game than he typically has with the green dot, with, I believe, 8 combined tackles and a sack. Claudin Charles played 72% of the snaps. Charles, he's clearly getting behind. If Wallace is out and Charles is playing, I assume he's clearly behind the Campbell and the James and so forth. Maybe ahead of an EJ Speed.
Yeah, they're probably neck and neck. I don't really want either one, but look, their tackles are decent enough to start, just not great. You're not getting anything more, I guess.
Charles and Speed are both like linebacker fives for me.
That's
Is probably where I would have them.
completely fine.
Okay. All right. And the last linebacker injury we're going to talk about is Shaq Thompson. And remember, a little bit later, we're going to talk about playing time. I'm going to do a rapid fire and playing time here a little bit later. But in terms of injuries, Shaq Thompson actually started the game ahead of Terrell Bernard. Got hurt, dinged on the first series, and then was out. So Bernard ended up playing 91% of the snaps, as did Milano, by the way, which was another season high for Milano. We'll talk about him a little bit later as well. But um, that was very surprising that Thompson started ahead of Bernard, and Bernard went right into the game. So I know he's coming back from that elbow injury. If Shaq Thompson is healthy, I don't know if you can risk Thompson or Bernard because it's you're not clear. Was Bernard just there just in case Thompson
Right.
got hurt? Sure enough, he got hurt, and so they threw him in. He did have 7 tackles, only one of which was solo. Did Bernard? But man, I don't know if Thompson's healthy. Will it be Bernard? Will it be Thompson? I'm not so sure, Shawn.
Yeah, is it a rotation? Yeah, that's that was a big loop we weren't expected. And Bernard hasn't been great this year for us anyway. So I really hope nobody is banking on him for your championship here. I'm looking elsewhere either way. If even if Bernard is the unquestioned starter, I'm looking for something better. His tackle floor has not been good this year, but yeah, very surprising. I wasn't expecting it, and with that injury, maybe save Bernard's season.
Ber- Bernard hasn't been as bad as Cody Barton. It would take a lot to be as bad as Cody Barton, but he
That
certainly has been a disappointment this year.
that's quite the bar, and I do have one more to add to this list. I've
Okay.
actually been reading a little bit here since we started. Denzel Perryman suspended for 2 games.
Good call out. I did forget to put that in there. Has his appeal been heard yet?
I do not believe so.
So
Has not been heard yet. So I mean that's going to be coming up. Maybe they reduce it down to 1 or something, or a
but
fine.
either way, he's most likely he's not going to play. Even if it, I doubt if it's to 0 and just a fine. To your point, so I
Mhm.
think best case it gets reduced to 1, which means he probably won't be playing this weekend. Given that, Troy Dye, when he's played that 70% role, which Perriman's played, he's been fairly effective in many games in that 70% role. How does he stack up if Perriman's out?
I think he's right there with Shamar James, right there with him. I don't want to put him too much higher just because it is a bit of a limited role, uh, but efficient tackler when he's been in there. Flies all over the place, gets a lot of tackles. He's more exciting than Dion Henley right now.
Sad but true. That is correct. I mean, Perriman, even with his limited snap count, it seems like almost every week he has more tackles than Dion Henley, which is sad because
Yeah, that's not where we drafted him to be.
that is exactly right. All right, that wraps up the linebackers. So now, Shawn, let's move to the defensive backs here. And we're going to start in Seattle, where the Thursday night game, Nick Imanwari, late in the game, was tested for concussion. Supposedly, he did not have a concussion and could have gone back in. So he should be fine for this coming week. So we're not concerned about him, but we're going to be monitoring injury reports. Kobe Bryant did hurt a knee. And twice I've said, and there goes the end of your Tayo Keita shares. You can drop him. And there go, whether it was Julian Love, blah, blah, a couple of times. But here we go. So Kobe Bryant's out. Tayo Keita's in. Julian Love finally returned to a full-time snap count at 97%. Also with the Seahawks, Reek Woolen, the outside cornerback, got hurt. When that happened, Devin Witherspoon started playing more on the outside, along with a little bit from Nehemiah Pritchett. And as a result, Witherspoon, who played 96% of snaps, played 52% out wide, only 48% close to the line of scrimmage. Shawn, and that was, that transition during the game. So those numbers about out wide could get even worse if Woolen's out. Witherspoon or Cooper DeJean, if you have those two. And I know one of our loyal followers and listeners has those two and ask that question every week. So that's why I'm teeing it up. Given what we just talked about, and the Seahawks play the Panthers, as you're thinking about that. While
Yeah, DeJean's playing the Commanders. So again, we're going back to, can Josh Johnson keep this ball rolling? I think they'll have to throw.
No, it's not the Commanders. It's
Not
Seahawks
the
versus
Commanders.
Panthers and Eagles versus Bills.
Eagles versus Bill. That's right. That's right. Um, it changes a little bit. Josh Allen's known to throw a pick or two. I do like that for Cooper DeJean. I still like Cooper DeJean over Witherspoon. I think Witherspoon will be fine enough on the outside. He seems to still be getting a handful of tackles, so he's not terrible. And DeJean feels like with Nakobe Dean coming out or not playing, most likely not playing, it may open him up a little more to take on a little extra role there in the middle as well. So
Okay, let me add one twist to the question. Reek Woolen is playing this. If Reek Woolen is playing this week, DeJean or Witherspoon?
it's still DeJean for me.
Okay.
It makes Witherspoon a little more enticing, but since Emanwari is really taken over, it's him and then everyone else.
Amon Ward's been a freaking beast, man.
I
Holy
know
cow.
it's great to get one right from months ago. Been a lot of wrongs in there.
No, there haven't been that many wrongs. Come on now.
There's been one or two wrongs.
One or two, maybe. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Chauncey Gardner-Johnson for the Chicago Bears as we move on here. Had that nickel star role, whatever you want to call it, that we loved in the Dennis Allen defense that we thought Kyler Gardner, or at least I thought Kyler Gardner was going to be a superstar on. Well, he gets hurt. Nick McLeod, who is not exactly a stallion, as it go, came in, got 2 tackles in place of C.J. Gardner-Johnson. On the outside, before I ask you the question, Shawn, Nashawn Wright played 100%, and once again, Jalen Johnson and Tariq Stevenson were on the opposite side, platooning with Johnson at 63%, Stevenson at 37%. If Gardner-Johnson is out, I don't think that either Johnson or Tariq Stevenson or Nashawn Wright moves into that star/nickel role. I still think it ends up being Nick McLeod. Would you play Nick McLeod as a defensive back 2?
No,
I would not either.
no, he's not the talent of Gardner Johnson. He doesn't have the same skill set, the same mindset. No, I'm looking elsewhere. The role is nice, but it's kind of like Will Harris in Washington.
That's a great comparison.
The
And
role is
Harris would probably
fantastic.
be And Harris would be a notch above um,
McLeod.
McLeod, yes, for
Yeah.
perspective for our audience. Just and we, I think our audience is following us know how we feel about Nick. Will Harris. We've got him in the same mindset as a Cody Barton type. So, um, okay, so no to Nick McLeod. Right. Let's move to the Packers. Evan Williams was out. Some people are saying he's playing at all pro level this year. Javon Bullard ended up playing the Evan Williams role. And because of the injury situation, he played 100% of snaps at safety. Nate Hobbs became the number 3 cornerback and was a slot cornerback and played 54% of the snaps. If Evan Williams is out and you're in a pinch for a safety, Javon Bullard, who played, I believe it was 59% of his snaps, he played deep. Would you play Javon Bullard as a number 3 defensive back?
Yeah, I think so.
Would you play
Uh,
him as a 2?
as a two, no, no. Three, yes. Two, no. No,
Okay.
no. I'm looking elsewhere.
Yes. So Evan Williams, the thing about him, his role and how much he plays deep and close to the box has fluctuated week over week. And I think the same thing could happen with Javon Bullard. And so while he had a pretty good week this past week, I don't know if you can rely on that week over week. Go and look at Evan Williams' stats. Assume Javon Bullard's playing that same role. And that's what you could be looking at week over week. So that is the risk with Javon Bullard. So I agree with you in terms of a defensive back 3, not a 2. Brandon Jones goes to IR. PJ Locke ended up playing 97% of the snaps. Not sure I'm chasing PJ Locke in championship week. Jalen Thompson was out. Dadrian Taylor Dimerson, who apparently his nickname is Rabbit, if you hear that as FYI, stepped into that role, had a very, very solid and productive game. I'd be willing to play him as a number 2 safety if Jalen Thompson is out this coming week. Shawn, do you agree with that, or am I being too aggressive?
He's had some decent games and everything. The usage is nice.
And can I
I,
add,
go ahead.
he's been very efficient from a tackling perspective when he's played like 50 or 60% of the snaps as that number 3 safety. Sorry, Shawn, go ahead.
Yeah, it's. I don't know. I'm having a hard time trusting the Cardinals in general. Uh, it feels like they're doing something weird every other week. I would feel safer with him over PJ Locke. Probably have him rather more with Bullard than I'm not as bullish as you are on him.
Okay.
But
If,
yeah, I'm not totally out on him either. So
okay. So you have him more as a 3. I have him as a
I
low
do.
end 2. Okay. I have him because of that similar role to Jalen Thompson.
Sure.
I have him kind of playing similarly from that regard to what you'd see with Jalen Thompson. Also, while we're talking about the Cardinals, Garrett Williams went on IR today. It is a torn Achilles. For those that might have him in a dynasty league, it's going to be a good, really 2 years realistically before he's back to, the Garrett Williams we were truly hoping for that played on the outside and then moved to the slot in 3 wide. And also, I think he's someone you can most likely release. So, Shawn.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It sucks. I hate to see it, especially with the way these guys have to run backwards. It's it's harder for them to come back and have that same motion, I guess, and to get over that. So yeah, but expect nothing out of him next year.
Donovan Wilson missed some time. Marquise Bell, as typical, replaced him. Haven't heard anything about severity and if Wilson's at risk for this coming week. Shawn?
It was an eye injury. He got hit and it just kind of busted his eye open. They stitched it up. That's why he was able to come back in.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right, so we expect Donovan Wilson to play for those in deeper leagues. The Pittsburgh Steelers, James Pierre was out. So right off the bat, they had to start Asante Samuel Jr. in his place, across from Joey Porter Jr. Then Brandon Echols, the slot cornerback, gets hurt. Jalen Ramsey moved into that wonderful slot star position that I was so thrilled about this coming into the year. Didn't have the biggest and best of games in terms of IDP stats. But if Pierre and Echols are out, he could be in that role. And then When he moved into that role, Chuck Clark came in and played safety next to Duggar. By the way, Duggar had a very nice game, including a sack and a safety. Jalen Ramsey, if Pierre and Echols are out, you boosting him up your cornerback list / safety list up to a number one,
Number one,
a top 12,
top 15. I can't
top
go top.
15.
I'll go top 15.
All right, fair enough.
Just in case he's got rusty in those weeks of taking it easy on the backside there.
All righty. Then lastly, Trent McDuffie for the Chiefs. Unless I missed someone, then you can let me know, Shawn. But he didn't practice on Monday or Tuesday. He didn't play his past week or two. He got a knee injury a couple of games ago. Chiefs have nothing to play for. Oh, you want to hear an interesting stat that hit me today?
Sure.
The Kansas City Chiefs, the defending Super Bowl champions, only have one more win than my beloved New Orleans Saints this year. How's that for perspective?
I think my Dolphins have one more.
Yeah,
No,
I think
are they tied?
actually the Dolphins have the same amount as the Chiefs. That's
They're
exactly
tied.
right.
Okay. Yeah.
Boy, that shows how far the mighty Chiefs have fallen.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're down here with us.
Exactly. So back to Trent McDuffie now that I gave that to you. Oh, you know another stat I noticed today? Okay. This was interesting. You know how many passes Jackson Dart completed this last game for the Giants?
Was it 3?
No, it was actually 7.
No, you got
He was
7?
sacked,
Okay.
he was sacked 5 times. He attempted 13 passes. So, boy, if Mike Kafka was auditioning to be the future head coach of the Giants, and you would think he should be trying to develop Jackson Dart, just handing the ball off a bunch of times, probably wasn't the smartest thing to do. Okay, I digress. But so for our audience, love every once in a while some interesting little tidbits there. McDuffie's out. McDuffie missed practice on Monday and Tuesday. So did Jalen Watson. Christian Fulton, the former LSU Tiger, by the way, came in, had a monster tackle game, finished with 10 tackles on about 60 to 70% of the snaps. I think it was 64 the more I think about it. He'll probably play a 100% role, will he? He'll be playing against the Broncos, who will throw the ball a lot and then run the ball a lot late in the game. You taking a chance on Christian Fulton playing the Trent McDuffie / Jalen Watson role in your championship week with all those tackles he accumulated, tied for the lead with the 2 linebackers, Bolton and Tranquil, who basically almost played a full set of snaps.
I can't. And here's why.
You're an LSU hater. That's what it is.
That was his Titans revenge game as a former Titan. He was a little more motivated there. Also, I can't trust this guy to stay healthy.
Yeah.
That's the problem. I would want to start him. I see those numbers. I'm excited. I'm putting him in, about to win my championship. 4 plays in, he's messed up his hamstring again or something like that. That's my fear with a guy like Fulton. Yeah. Take that chance. His ceiling's high, but just know this dude can get injured at a moment's notice.
Yeah, because we've seen McDuffie and Watson both have good games in the past, and because he had 10 tackles and people might have been looking at the box scores, it's why I want to call it out, not just because he went to LSU and so forth, because people might be in a situation where they need a cornerback and they're looking at it and saying, he had 10 tackles this past week kind of thing. So that's why I wanted to call it out. And I actually think Fulton can have a good game in this matchup against the Broncos, but it is an injury risk, to your point.
Yeah, it's even if you take that risk, it's not too crazy of a risk because he does have the playing time, and they're going to target him because this is like his first game he's played all season. I think he's played a few rotational snaps here and there. That's about it. So I'm sure they're going to pick on him, and then he'll get hurt.
Trying to tackle Cortland Sutton.
Yeah. 6 or 7 tackles, 3 missed tackles, and 1 hamstring injury, just in time for Christmas.
Yeah, we don't get IDP stats for hamstring injuries, unfortunately. Otherwise,
top on my draft board.
Yeah, exactly. He'd be way up near the top. Exactly right. Particularly in big play hamstring injuries, scoring leagues as well.
Big playing hamstrings. Oh my god, we just created an injury league. Hold on, guys.
Yeah, that we might have to think about that for next year. Okay. All righty. So that concludes the injury section, part one of the show. Now we're going to do what I'm calling playing time rapid fire. So, based on questions we've gotten through the year, based on stat outliers, maybe people performing a lot worse than expected this past week, or maybe a lot better than expected, going to go position by position, defensive line, linebackers, and defensive backs, and just quickly go through the stats, the playing time stats for those folks. Then I'll ask Shawn at the end of each one if there's any one or two that he wants to comment on, and he may not. We'll see. But we're going to run through them. And this is not in any particular order for the record, okay? Other than on the defensive line, I have most of the defensive ends first and the defensive tackle second. That's about it. All right, rapid fire. Here we go. Starting with and you got the timestamp, Shawn?
Gotcha.
Got it. Okay, cool. New York Giants, Abdul Carter, 90%. Brian Burns, 72%. Chauncey Golston, 41%. Dexter Lawrence, 85%. So Golston, while he did get a sack, only 41%. Okay, that's not rapid fire if I start doing that. The Broncos, very disappointing in terms of the snap counts for some of our studs. Jonathan Cooper at 60%. Nick Bonito down to 47%. There was 5-man rotation. So Dondre Tillman, 34%. Jonah Ellis, 31%. Q Robinson, 27%. Moving over to the Browns, they only played 50 snaps. Okay, this is supposed to be rapid fire, but a public service announcement. Myles Garrett did not deserve that half a sack. That was ridiculous that they gave him credit for that. That was weak. Okay, I get that off of my chest. Moving to the Patriots, Harold Landry, who's been battling an injury, only played 55% of the snaps. He's usually much higher than that. Kaylavon Chason did play over 70% of the snaps. So Harold Landry, if you've been relying on him, he's playing hurt. They've qualified for the playoffs. Be careful if he chose to use him. There goes. I'm messing up the rapid fire again. I can't help myself. Tuli Tuipulotu, 69%. Odafe Owe was second with 67%. Khalil Mack, 66%. Moving to the Ravens, Tavius Robinson back to the top at 71%. Draymond Jones, 60%. Mike Green all the way down to 45%. Kyle Van Noy with similar range. Nick Skirton and Derek Brown for the Carolina Panthers were at 84%. The Packers, with Micah Parsons being out. Kingsley Enagbari, 67%. Rashawn Gary, his normal run, 58%. Lucas Van Ness jumped to 41%. Truman Jones of the Tennessee Titans. I know people might get excited. Maybe even dynasty leagues. Oh, he had a sack and a half. He had 3 tackles, blah, blah, blah. He only played 11% of the snaps. We've talked about this. Don't chase that kind of stuff. Moving to defensive tackle, Kobe Turner, phenomenal game. 84% of the snaps, a season high. And I know it was a big game, and that's why they played him that way. But when you're trying to get the number 1 seed, they're going to continue to play him a lot. Tommy Togiai with the Texans, if I remember correctly, 7 tackles, played 70% of the snaps. He's been very effective in tackles. Joanne Briggs, who I said I wasn't going to ever talk about the Jets' defensive tackles again. He continues to have pretty good pass rush rate from a PFF perspective, and led their defense tackles with 68% of the snaps. Chris Jones all the way to 55%. I just like to throw in a Chris Jones stat every now and then. Okay, Shawn, anything out of that rapid-fire defensive line stats that you want to call out or elaborate on that I just brought up there?
Big game out of Burns, even on his lower snap percentage, but I think they played quite a few snaps. Harold Landry, I'm probably not playing him right now with the injury, low snaps. We could see them kind of doing the same thing they're doing with Spillane, where they kind of phase him out this week since they're pretty much guaranteed the playoffs. So why risk the injury? They may actually start sitting him more or just sit him out the rest of the regular season anyway. So just something to look out for. Odafe Owe, somebody I'm definitely starting right now. With his playing time going up, the sacks he's generating seems to really hit his stride here with the Chargers right now. I believe they play Houston this week.
That's correct. On the Saturday game, they played Houston. That's correct.
Yeah, I'm probably taking a shot on Owe if I have him. Do not chase after Truman Jones. I think he played 5 snaps, 6 snaps, something like that. the sack and a half he got were on back-to-back plays. Fantastic. That's great. It's not realistic to happen again.
Against the Chiefs' third string quarterback in a
Right.
banged up offensive line. Yeah. Yeah. Boy, so at that pace, if he played a typical defensive
Oh
line,
man.
of 600 snaps, that means he would have
Yeah. If
about
he played
400
the
snaps this year.
50 that Miles Garrett played, he's already catching up to him.
Exactly. He's leapfrogged him, in fact. He'd have the record. All right. So we've hit on Sherman Jones enough. Hopefully, we've made the point. Don't chase him. All righty. Anything else, Sean? Are you ready for linebackers?
I'm ready.
All right. Let's go to linebackers from a rapid fire perspective. Here we go. Once again, no particular order. Minnesota Vikings, Blake Cashman and Eric Wilson both played 100% of the snaps. For the Chicago Bears, TJ Edwards, 100%, Tremaine Edmonds 93%. No one else played a linebacker snap, including Noah Sewell, DeMarco Jackson, Ruben Hippolyte, and a partridge in a pear tree. None of them played a single snap. Ernest Jones 100%, Drake Thomas 84%. Nick Imanwari played 82% of snaps. Imanwari played 0% of snaps deep. Foyer Lucan played 100% of snaps for Jacksonville. Devin Lloyd only played 73%. One of the risks with Devin Lloyd. We talked about this a little bit earlier. Deion Henley, 97% of snaps for the Chargers. Denzel Perriman, only 55%. And when I say we talked about it earlier, we talked about Troy Dye. For the Cowboys, something you can't do is play Kenneth Murray, who played 56% of the snaps. Logan Wilson, who played 42% of the snaps. We talked about Overshown a little bit earlier. If you missed it, go check the linebacker injury section. Patrick Queen, 100% for the Steelers. Peyton Wilson, back up to 70%. Malik Harrison, back down to 22%. Public service announcement. If you play any Steelers linebacker, number two linebacker, you are playing them at your own risk. All righty, the Tampa Bay Bucks, for all the noise about are they going to bench Servatia Dennis? Is Deion Jones going to play? And there I'm messing up the rapid fire. They signed Anthony Walker to the practice squad. Are they going to elevate him? And they signed him to the active roster, but they made him inactive. But well, after all that rambling, Levante David 100%, Servatia Dennis 98%. They both got a sack. Both had a bunch of tackles as well. Cody Simon played 100%. Keem Davis-Gaither played 88%. Cody Simon wore the green dot. Keem Davis-Gaither had a much more effective game. Matt Milano, as we alluded to earlier, a season high, 91% of the snaps, 2 good games in a row. Can't wait to hear Sean's commentary on if he would play him in the finals. The Bengals had a massive blowout game, so their defense got to rest. That is the first time we have said that all year, that their defense got to rest because they won in a blowout. Barrett Carter and Jordan Battle, as examples, played only 73% of the snaps. That's part of the reason Barrett Carter only had 5 tackles, and they played a low snap count in total as well. The Giants, Darius Muasau played a disappointing 57% of the snaps, unless you played against him in the football diehard semifinals, which I did, and I was thrilled that that's all he played and didn't rack up a bunch of stats, allowing me to go to the finals. And finishing with the Raiders, Devin White played his 100% of the snaps as usual. Landon Roberts, 48%. Jamal Adams, 35%. Tommy Eichenberg, 17%. That adds up to basically 100%, folks. So now I have a 3-man rotation in that number 2 linebacker position. Sean, on the linebackers, there's a couple, I mentioned like Matt Milano, I want to hear your perspective on, but any others that jump out at you that you want to comment on?
Yeah, the Matt Milano piece here. Deep league, he's a deep league option anyway. Deep league, I'm starting him. I've seen enough over the last couple of weeks, and with the Eagles really getting Saquon moving the last few weeks too, I think it's perfect for him to get another 7, 8, 9 tackles, something like that. If I'm in a shallow league or anything outside of playing 4 linebackers, I'm not starting him. But he has been solid enough for me to start over a guy like Darius Muasau, who I'm probably not starting in my playoffs. Not after that dud. It was a pretty decent matchup. Looking back at his stats, he's only had 1 game in double-digit tackles. With the questionable playing time he may or may not get, I'm playing Milan over a guy like Muasau. I'm probably playing
Milano,
Mulatto over most of these guys. What's that?
Milano over Devin Lloyd.
Over Devin Lloyd? No, because Devin Lloyd still gives me the upside for a big play.
Milano over Peyton Wilson.
Well, yeah, I think so. I think
Yep.
so.
Milano over Cervasia.
I'm hesitant there because Cervasia can give me the sacks and can give me some high tackles here. And they have something to play for. So I think he'll outdo Milano, but by not by a lot.
Okay. Anybody else on the linebackers, or do you want to go into defensive backs?
I think we can move on. You pretty much hit everything else with these rotations to pretty much avoid most of these guys that are not getting to full time roles. So yeah, let's move on.
All right, we'll move to defensive backs, and the list is a little bit longer, folks. Not too much longer. But let's start with the Baltimore Ravens here. Kyle Hamilton, 99%. Aloy Gilman, 97%. Malachi Starks, only 76%. Or Darius Washington, 29%. Marlon Humphrey played 94% of the snaps that he played on the outside. So he only played 6% close to the line of scrimmage. Not what we're looking for from Marlon Humphrey. Derwin James, 98%. Elijah Molden returned from his injury, but they eased him back in at only 47%, meaning Tony Jefferson at 78%, Marcus Williams, who was caught up from the practice squad, at 52%. Shamari Connor, 100%. And this week he returned to only playing 16% deep, 84% close to line of scrimmage, which was fantastic. Brian Cook played 97% of the snaps. For Tampa Bay, Antoine Winfield and Tyke Smith, who have kind of driven us crazy to a certain degree this year. Tyke Smith was another one I played against, and I was glad he had a down game. Sorry for those that were playing or had them on their rosters and were using them, but it helped me out. Sorry about that. But not having a great game. They played 100% of the snaps. Cam Curl, 100% for the Rams. Cam Kinchin, 90%. Josh Wallace, playing the Quentin Lake role, only played 46% of the snaps, but he came in more from a primary slot perspective, whereas we know Lake plays 100%. No word on Quentin Lake potentially being activated this week. In fact, there was discussion that Higbee and Haverstein, the tight end and the offensive tackle, they talked about them. They didn't even bring up Quentin Lake's name, so it doesn't look like we'll have Quentin Lake back this
Yeah,
week.
I had actually read that a while back where they weren't expecting Quentin Lake to be back in the regular season. He maybe postseason, but I don't know how for certain that is. But yeah, the regular season was out a while back.
All right, so moving to the Giants, Jevin Holland played basically 100%. Tyler Nubin was at 82%, higher than the previous week, but still not at 100%. Dane Belton continues to take some of those steps, but he was at 64%. Luckily, Nubin got the scoop score for the burn sack. For the Vikings, Harrison Smith, 100%. Josh Medlis got put on IR. Expected Theo Jackson in his return take his place, but it was Jay Ward from LSU, 79% of the snaps. Theo Jackson, 38%. So Theo Jackson in dynasty leagues is looking bad for him right now, even after they signed a 3-year deal before the year started. Justin Reed returned, played 97% of the snaps for the Saints. Marcus Jones only played 35% of the snaps versus the Ravens. Folks, what do we know about the Ravens? A lot of 2 and 3 tight ends. What do we know about slot cornerbacks? When teams play a lot of multi-tight ends, those slot cornerbacks aren't going to play very much. Marcus Jones only 35%. For the Jets at safety, with Tony Adams on IR, Malachi Moore and Dean Clark played 99% of the snaps. That is not the same. Dean Clark is not the same as Dick Clark, who used to do the New Year's Eve thing or whatever. 2 different people, not related, etc. Okay, that was a really bad attempt at humor. Okay, Jordan Poyer had a phenomenal game from a stats perspective, but still not even at 90%, 87% of the snaps. Cam Lewis, 13%, second week in a row. Those two have rotated. Prior to that, Poyer was rotating some with Jordan Hancock. Maybe it's because of Poyer being so old and they don't want him to play 100% of the snaps and trying to preserve a little bit for the playoffs. That's my guess. Moving to the Jags. Andrew Wingard, 96%. And as my man Shawn here predicted last week, Eric Murray, 79%, Antonio Johnson, 65%. They did do a platoon thing as Shawn thought they would. I thought it might be Eric Murray over Johnson. Shawn called the platoon. The more he talked about it, I agreed with him, and that's exactly what happened. So Wingard is the one to play, and I'll let you talk about that more later. Also, the cornerbacks, tons of rotation. None of the cornerbacks played over 80% of the snaps for the Jaguars. For the Dolphins, and there's only about five more of these to go, folks. Hang in there. Ifiatu Melifonwu, who played 100% of the snaps. Ashton Davis, 77%. I didn't see where he got hurt. Dante Trader played 54% of the snaps, including 45% in the slot. Jason Marshall played 51% of the snaps, and he played 87% of that 51% in the slot as well. Moving to the Titans, who put almost every safety they have on IR, other than Amani Hooker. Kendall Brooks played 100% of the snaps next to Amani Hooker. Eric Hallett, who they signed off the Detroit Lions practice squad from the week before. I wonder if he'll take Kendall Brooks' role this coming week. Will Harris in that darn Commanders rotation this week, 100%. Quan Martin down to 84%. Jeremy Reeves at 26%. For the Lions, Avante Maddox really pissed me off with his lack of productivity in watching that game. He could have had a couple more tackles, but he didn't want to put his body into it.
He's old, man. He's old.
He's had two straight DNPs because of a back situation on Monday and Tuesday. And once again, they have a Thursday game. So if you were hoping to play him after what he did, I wouldn't play him. But two is most likely two DNPs on Monday and Tuesday. You're not going to see him on Thursday. But he played 93% of the snaps. Thomas Harper played 97%, had a much bigger game. Will it be Jalen Mills instead if Maddox doesn't go, which I think he won't? Will it be DeMonte Casey? Will it be Amik Robertson, who also is limited practice with a hand situation? Who knows?
Daniel Thomas is still out there.
Thomas is still out there as well. And last but not least, a special shout out to Miles Bryant, who 93% of the snaps as the number 5 defensive back for the Texans, but he truly sucked. So this isn't necessarily rapid fire, but on the touchdown catch that Bowers had in the back of the end zone, he was the one covering. Ashton Genty on Genty's two long plays, the long run touchdown, long pass touchdown. Bryant missed tackles on both of those that allowed Genty to go a long ways. So if you had Genty on your team, you're probably thrilled. But Miles Bryant, there's a reason that he has kind of bounced around a little bit. And the Texans keep on going back to him because they have all these injuries. But, ugh. Okay, Shawn, that was rapid fire with a couple of tangential conversations or comments from Ricky here. Any of these that you want to call out and discuss here?
Marlon Humphrey, even going to the outside, another interception, 6 sacks. I'm actually fine starting him.
6 sacks?
Or tackles. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm trying to read and talk and everything else. But yeah,
Is that
I'm
like
actually fine.
bubblegum and walking at the same time?
Yeah, it's not for everybody. I'm starting Marlon Humphrey with his ability to manifest turnovers, seeing the tackle numbers he got. I'm actually okay starting with it. I'm not scared of him moving to the outside. If our Darius Washington got a full set of playing time, his usage was fantastic. He was 100% in the slot, in the box, which I think was their original role for him this year. So we're not going to see that manifest anything this season. Something to look for next year. I don't know how everybody's contracts are going to play out and these playing times are going to work out, but they basically have a probably the deepest safety room in the league right now. There's a couple others I was wanting to hit on. Newman, Belton. I'm avoiding these guys. I don't like the rotation. I know Newman was saved by that touchdown, but production just hasn't been what we thought it would be this year. And so, yeah, I'm still going to try to avoid those guys. Justin Reed, when healthy, over the last half of this season, has been really solid. And when the matchup is right, he's a good pickup. There's a good chance he's out there on a lot of waivers if you need a guy. Again, Malachi Moore has been playing fantastic. His usage has been great. And the Jets suck, so he's on the field a lot. And that's what we need for defensive backs. Regarding the Jaguars situation here, the usage for Antonio Johnson was actually the best. Excuse me. So he only played 65% of the snaps, but all of them were up near the line. 2 tackles is all he got. So not great. Wingard and Murray were both playing deep. I think Wingard only got a tackle himself. And Murray is the one who actually did the best. So that could be because the Broncos had to throw more. They were playing from behind. Something to look out for. It'd be hard to
That's a
trust
good
any of
point.
these guys going forward with this week.
And you're right. Wingard only had one tackle. That is correct. Antonio Johnson only had two tackles. That is correct.
I had them both in separate leagues. I knew they did not do good. Actually, I had Murray
All
in a
right.
different league, so I've had all three.
Yeah. And Murray had actually the most tackles with five of them
So
combined.
it's going to be hard to predict whose week it's going to be each week here with these guys playing more week to week. Not really. I feel like they move around the way the Patriots used to, where it depends on the matchup as to what their roles are going to be from week to week. Instead of one guy continuously being the box guy, another guy just being the deep guy. We've seen Wingard play up in the box a lot this year, and this week it was all deep. So depending on the matchup, if it's somebody that they think can run on them, maybe they play up more. We get some more tackles out of them, but hard to trust these guys. Uh, Definitely don't want any of these guys to be your main safety option right now.
Yeah.
Will Harris still sucks. I don't know if you mentioned that.
Cody Barton of safeties. Will Harris. There you
Yeah,
go.
yep. That's pretty much it. I think. I believe you nailed the rest.
All right. Good
Miles
deal.
Bryant sucks. He's going to the Will Harris, Cody Barton category. We'll put
I
him
think
over
he's a
here.
notch below those guys. Right. So Shawn, if you're deciding between two players playing and it's pretty close in your mind, and one of the players is on a team that has something to play for, and one of the others is on a team that maybe doesn't have something to play for, does that influence you at all? Or
at,
a lot or a little bit,
at
or
this
maybe a
time
medium amount?
at this time of year, when you're looking at playoff teams that can't really advance their position much, they will start pulling their starters later in the games. Winning or losing doesn't really affect their record. They can't get a better seed. They're not going to lose their position. So you have to watch out for that. We start seeing some of the depth guys just to get get those guys some playing time, rest the starters a bit. So that's something we have to watch out for. And then the other thing is, and I haven't done enough research on it this year, but in the past I've looked at some of the incentives some of these guys need to get their big bonuses. And if anybody has the time and wants to do that this week, go for it. But if you can find the right guys that need, an extra interception this season or
Or a
another
sack?
sack, yeah, exactly, something like that. Start those guys because they're still chasing money, even if they're the Browns, if they're the Dolphins, or whatever. If they're eliminated, they still want that money.
That's right. A lot of them have 250,000, 500,000 kind of types of bonuses.
Absolutely.
And, even though a lot of these guys make a lot of money, 250,000, 500,000, 750 million, that they want it, man.
Yeah, I've never had a bonus that big, but I would like to.
I
But yeah,
wouldn't be going
anytime I got
after that kind of money. Yep.
anytime I got $100 bonus, I was excited. So these guys can potentially get 200, a $250,000 for one more sack. Yeah, I'm taking that dude's head off. I mean that's the mentality you're going with. So
Biting,
if it,
scratching, clawing. Yeah, exactly.
and some of these guys have enough pride that they don't shut themselves down. Uh, Jeffrey Simmons is probably one of the better examples where he's still out there giving it his all every week. Chris Jones, I question just on some of the plays I've seen where it looks like he's just kind of quitting on some of this. And I knew he can be better than that. So, not just singling out him. He was just one of the examples I've seen recently that I didn't like.
All righty. So with that, then let's talk about a couple of things. One is our last weekly live start sit show is this Sunday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central for an hour. If you want to guarantee your question's going to be answered, either get in very early or use the super chat. Otherwise, you risk not getting your question answered. All righty. So come join us for our last live start sit show, and definitely engage with us and let us know your thoughts and comments from throughout the year, and maybe what you're cooking for Christmas dinner. All right. Also, this is our last IDP advice show for the year. We will not be doing one recapping week 17. For those that might be playing week 18, we apologize for that. But with the holidays and so few people doing week 18, hopefully we've taught you well, you've learned a lot, and you know where to take it from here going into that last week in week 18. All right. Right. If you like this show, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. We will be monitoring questions, comments, suggestions, as I mentioned. If you like this new format, we may go with it next year if we get a lot of positive feedback, or we won't go with it if we get some constructive feedback. Notice I didn't say negative. Be nice in your feedback, okay? But yeah, so we'll be checking all that and helping answer your questions and all. Be patient with us though, with the Christmas holidays and so forth. That's all we ask is be patient, timing wise and all. And the earlier you post it, the better. Follow me at Ricky Rod 66, Shawn at Shawn 8386 on X. We will be back periodically during the off season, so it's part of the reason we encourage you to follow us on X. Shawn and I will not spam you with a ton of information on X, but if you want to hear us talk about some dynasty stuff, we're going to do our top 24 show in terms of who's going to repeat next year and who won't repeat, which we got a lot right. We missed some, but there was a lot though we got right that could have served.
Haven't looked in a while. I know we were not as close as I had hoped, but that's been a month and a half ago. I think I sent that to you. Yeah, haven't looked at it in a while.
We're going to check that out. All righty. So with that, come join us for the Start Sit Show on Sunday morning, our last one for the year. On behalf of my partner in crime, who's been fantastic to work with during the year, Shawn Teague, I can't thank Shawn enough. He's been so awesome, and hopefully you've got great information, insight from Shawn throughout the year. On behalf of him and myself, Ricky Rodrigue, we're wishing you, your family, and your friends great health and happiness. Have a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, everyone. Be kind to one another, and we're out of here, and we'll see you on Sunday morning.